My husband of 18 years left me. My best friend Lauren was the only thing that kept me sane. She held my hand through the tears, slept over when I couldn't be alone, and swore that men were trash and we had each other. I trusted her with my deepest pain. So when I found out 2 years later that she was the one he'd left me for, that they'd been together behind my back the entire time, I thought my world had ended. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was what happened after the wedding. The shocking part was the gift they gave me without ever knowing it. Hello. Welcome to Hurt Stories. There are two people in this world I loved more than myself for most of my adult life. One was my husband, Mark. The other was my best friend, Lauren. I met Mark when I was 23. He was 25, handsome in that unassuming way, with a laugh that could fill a room and eyes that crinkled when he smiled. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue. I was standing by the grill, trying to figure out how to flip a burger without setting it on fire, and he appeared next to me, took the spatula from my hand, and said, "You look like you need a rescue." That was Mark, always rescuing, always showing up. We were together for 5 years before we got married and another 18 after that. 23 years total, most of my life. He was my home. I met Lauren a year after Mark and I started dating. She was new in town, working at the same bookstore where I spent my Saturdays browsing. We struck up a conversation in the poetry section. She was holding a collection of Mary Oliver, my favorite, and something just clicked. She was funny and warm and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when she talked to you. We became inseparable. She was at our wedding, crying happy tears. She was there when my mother died, holding my hand through the funeral. She was there for every birthday, every anniversary, every hard day, and every good one. She was the sister I never had. For 20 years, these two people were my entire world. Mark and Lauren, Lauren and Mark. They were the pillars of my life, the ones I called when something good happened, and the ones I called when something bad happened. They were my family. I had no idea they were also becoming each other's. Looking back now, I can see the signs. Isn't that always the way? Hindsight is a cruel gift, showing you everything you missed when you were too busy trusting to be suspicious. There were late nights at work for Mark that seemed to happen more often. There were girls' nights with Lauren that she'd cancel at the last minute. There were glances between them at dinner parties, quick and furtive, that I chalked up to inside jokes I wasn't part of. There were whispered conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. I saw it all, and I explained it all away, because the alternative was unthinkable. The alternative would have meant that my entire adult life was built on a lie, and I wasn't ready to believe that. So I didn't. I kept trusting. I kept loving. I kept being the wife, the best friend, the fool. The day Mark left was a Tuesday, just like in the movies. A gray, drizzly Tuesday in October. He came home from work early. That should have been my first clue. Mark never came home early. He was a creature of habit, of routine, of predictable schedules. But there he was, standing in the kitchen at 3 in the afternoon, still in his suit, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. He asked me to sit down. I laughed and said it sounded serious. He didn't laugh back. He said he wasn't happy. He said he hadn't been happy for a long time. He said he needed something different. He said he was sorry. I remember asking if there was someone else. It's the cliché question, the one every wife asks when her husband leaves. And he looked at me, and for a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, fear, I'll never know, because he looked away and said no. He said it was him, not anyone else. He just needed to be alone, to figure things out, to find himself. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. Because if there was someone else, that meant he'd been lying. That meant our marriage was a sham. That meant I'd been blind. And I wasn't ready for any of those things. So I believed him. I helped him pack. I cried and hugged him and told him I loved him and that I'd wait for him to figure things out. I was pathetic. I was noble. I was a fool. The weeks after he left were a blur of tears and takeout and television shows I didn't watch. I couldn't sleep in our bed, too big, too empty, so I slept on the couch. I couldn't eat at the dining table, too many memories, so I ate standing at the kitchen counter. I couldn't listen to music or look at photos or go to any of the places we used to go. But I had Lauren. She showed up the day after he left with a bottle of wine and a box of tissues. She sat on my couch and let me cry on her shoulder for hours. She told me he was an idiot. She told me I deserved better. She told me she'd always be there for me, no matter what. She slept over that night, and the next night, and the night after that. She brought groceries. She made me eat. She made me shower. She held my hand when I couldn't stop shaking. I remember looking at her one night in the dim light of my living room and thinking how lucky I was, how blessed. My husband had left me, but I still had my best friend. I still had Lauren. She was my anchor in the storm. I had no idea she was the storm. With Lauren's help, I started to rebuild. It was slow, painful work. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed, and Lauren would drag me out. There were nights I couldn't stop crying, and Lauren would hold me until I fell asleep. She was relentless in her kindness, unwavering in her support. We started having what she called Claire nights. Just the two of us, watching movies, eating junk food, talking about everything and nothing. She'd listen for hours as I dissected my marriage, trying to understand where it went wrong. She'd nod and agree, and tell me I was better off without him. She encouraged me to go back to things I'd given up. Painting. I used to love painting, but Mark thought it was a waste of time. Lauren bought me a new set of brushes and a canvas and told me to create something. So I did. I painted a garden, full of flowers and light, and it felt like the first step toward something new. She encouraged me to travel. We took a weekend trip to the coast, just the two of us. We walked on the beach, ate seafood, drank wine, and for the first time in months I laughed, really laughed. I looked at Lauren, her face lit by the sunset, and I felt so grateful, so lucky. She was my person, my ride or die, my forever friend. There were moments, though. Little things that didn't quite add up, like how she'd sometimes get quiet when I talked about Mark. Not sympathetic quiet, something else. Something harder to name. Like how she'd change the subject whenever I wondered where he was, who he was with, what he was doing. Like how she seemed to know things about him that I hadn't told her. His new job, his new apartment, his new routine. I'd ask how she knew, and she'd say something vague. Oh, I ran into so-and-so. Oh, I heard from what's-her-name. And I'd let it go because I trusted her, because she was Lauren, because she'd held me while I cried. I didn't want to see, I couldn't afford to see, because seeing would mean losing her too, and I couldn't lose her. She was all I had left. It was 2 years after the divorce when I got the invitation. I was at work, grading papers. I'd gone back to teaching, something I'd loved before Mark discouraged it. The envelope was heavy, cream-colored, with my name in calligraphy I didn't recognize. I opened it at my desk, surrounded by the quiet hum of the school day, and I read the words 3 times before they made sense. Lauren Elizabeth Mitchell and Mark Anthony Reeves request the honor of your presence at their wedding. I stared at the words, Lauren Mark wedding. I thought it was a mistake, a prank, a cruel joke. I called Lauren immediately. No answer. I called again. No answer. I texted, "What is this?" Hours passed. Finally a response. "Can we talk?" I drove to her apartment that evening. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember parking. I remember walking up the stairs, my legs shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She opened the door. She looked beautiful as always, and she looked terrified. I held up the invitation, I asked her if it was true. She nodded. She started crying. She said she was sorry. She said it just happened. She said they never meant to hurt me. I asked how long. She looked at the floor. She said it started before the divorce. A few months before. She said it was an accident. She said they tried to stop. She said they couldn't. I stood there in her doorway, the invitation crumpling in my hand, and I felt the world crack open beneath my feet. 2 years. 2 years of holding me while I cried about the man she was sleeping with. 2 years of Claire nights and beach trips and I'm here for you, while she was lying to my face every single day. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just turned around and walked away. I heard her calling my name, but I didn't stop. I got in my car, I drove home, and I sat in my dark living room for hours, staring at nothing, feeling nothing. The two people I loved most in the world. The two people I trusted most. They had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and they were getting married. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. The first divorce had broken me, but I'd had Lauren to put me back together. Now I had no one. She was gone. He was gone. My whole support system, built over 20 years, had vanished overnight. My other friends didn't know what to say. Some took sides, her side mostly. She was better at spinning stories than I was. She told people I was bitter, that I'd driven Mark away, that she'd only found comfort with him after I'd already failed him. People believed her. She was charming. She was likable. I was just the ex-wife, the sad woman who couldn't let go. I stopped going out. I stopped answering calls. I stopped teaching for a while, took a leave of absence, told my boss I needed time. I spent my days in bed and my nights staring at the ceiling. I thought about revenge. I thought about showing up at their wedding and making a scene. I thought about posting everything on social media, telling the world what they'd done. I thought about calling Mark's mother, we'd always been close, and telling her what her precious son had done. But none of it would bring back what I'd lost. None of it would undo the betrayal. None of it would make me whole again. And then, one night, something shifted. I was lying in bed in the dark, and I started thinking about my painting. The garden I'd painted with Lauren's encouragement. The colors, the light, the way it had felt to create something beautiful when my life was falling apart. I got up, I went to my studio, the spare bedroom I'd converted, and I looked at that painting. It was good, really good. I'd forgotten how much I loved to paint. I'd forgotten how much of myself I'd given up, first for Mark, then for Lauren, then for grief. I picked up a brush. I started painting. I painted all night. And when the sun came up, I looked at what I'd created. It was dark, storm clouds, rough seas, a single figure standing on a cliff, but there was light in it too. A break in the clouds, a glimmer of sun on the water. It was me. That's what I looked like now, stormy but with light breaking through. I realized something in that moment. I had spent my whole life building my world around other people, first Mark, then Lauren. I had made them my foundation, my reason for being, and when they crumbled, I crumbled with them. But I didn't have to crumble. I could build something new, something that was mine, something that couldn't be taken away. I didn't go to the wedding. The invitation sat on my kitchen counter for weeks. I looked at it every day. I thought about going. I thought about wearing white. I thought about walking in and smiling and wishing them well, just to see the look on their faces. But that would have been about them, and I was done making my life about them. So I threw the invitation away. I blocked them both on everything. I told mutual friends I didn't want updates. I erased them from my life as completely as they had erased me. And then I started living. I threw myself into my painting. I painted every day, sometimes for hours. Landscapes, portraits, abstracts, whatever came out. I joined a local artists' collective. I started showing my work. People bought it. They liked it. They said it spoke to them. I started teaching again, but differently. I'd always been a good teacher, but now I was something more. I was present. I was real. I didn't hide behind my marriage or my friendships or my roles. I just showed up as myself, and my students responded. They trusted me. They opened up to me. I was making a difference. I traveled, not the careful, planned trips I used to take with Mark or Lauren, adventurous trips, solo trips. I went to Italy and got lost in the countryside. I went to Japan and sat in quiet gardens. I went to Morocco and painted the markets. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was discovering who I was when no one else was watching. I made new friends, real friends, people who didn't know my history, who didn't have opinions about the divorce or the betrayal. People who liked me for me, not for my story. I learned to trust again, slowly, carefully. I learned that not everyone betrays you. Some people are exactly who they seem to be. And I started writing. Not a blog this time, but something deeper. A book. About betrayal and forgiveness and learning to love yourself. About the gift that loss can be if you let it. About how the people who hurt you the most can also be the ones who set you free. I didn't know if anyone would read it. I didn't care. I wrote it for myself. I wrote it for the woman I used to be, the one on the bathroom floor, the one who thought her life was over. I wrote it to tell her she was wrong. 3 years after the wedding, I saw them again. I was at an art opening, my art opening. A gallery in the city had agreed to show my work. A whole room dedicated to me. It was the kind of thing I'd never dreamed possible. The room was full of people. Friends, collectors, curious strangers. I was standing by my favorite piece, a large canvas of a woman standing alone in a field, her back to the viewer, facing a vast and open sky, when I felt someone behind me. I turned, and there they were. Mark and Lauren holding hands, looking older, looking lost. For a moment, the old rage flared, the old pain, the old urge to scream, to confront, to make them pay. But then I looked at them, really looked. Mark's hair was grayer. His eyes were tired. He looked like a man who had gotten what he wanted and found out it wasn't enough. Lauren was still beautiful, but there was something hard in her face now, something guarded. She clutched his arm like she was afraid he might disappear. They hadn't come to cause trouble. They'd come because they'd heard about the show. They'd come because they were curious. They'd come because they couldn't stay away. Lauren spoke first. She said my name like a question, like she wasn't sure I'd respond. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She started talking, apologizing, explaining, saying how sorry she was, how she'd never meant to hurt me, how she thought about me all the time. The words tumbled out, desperate and inadequate. Mark stood silent, his eyes on the floor. When she finally stopped, I still didn't speak. I just looked at them, these two people who had once meant everything to me, and I realized something. I didn't hate them. I didn't love them. I didn't feel anything at all. They were strangers, just two people I used to know. I said very quietly, "I hope you're happy." And I meant it. Not because I wanted them to be happy, but because their happiness or unhappiness had nothing to do with me anymore. Lauren started crying. She reached for my hand. I let her take it, and for a moment I felt the old connection, the ghost of 20 years of friendship. Then I gently pulled away. I said, "Take care of yourselves." And I turned back to my painting. I heard them walk away. I heard the door close behind them. And I stood there in a room full of my work, surrounded by people who loved me, and I felt peace. Real, deep, unshakable peace. People always ask me how I forgave them. The truth is, I didn't. Not in the way they mean. I didn't have a moment of grace where I let go of all the anger and embraced them with love. I didn't pray for them or wish them well or send them Christmas cards. I just stopped carrying them. They had been a weight, a burden. Every time I thought about them, I felt heavy. Every time I remembered the betrayal, I felt sick. I was carrying them with me everywhere, like stones in my pocket. And one day, I just put the stones down. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. I was tired of being heavy. I was tired of being sick. I was tired of giving them space in my head and my heart when they didn't deserve it. So I let them go, not with a big gesture, not with a dramatic speech, just quietly, privately, one day at a time. And here's the thing I never expected. Here's the shocking part. By letting them go, I found myself. For 20 years, I had been defined by my relationships. Mark's wife, Lauren's best friend. I was the supporting character in my own life, always playing a role in someone else's story. When they betrayed me, they took those roles away. They left me with nothing. No husband, no best friend, no identity. And that nothing was actually everything. It was the space I needed to become who I was always meant to be. It was the blank canvas I could fill with my own colors, my own dreams, my own life. They didn't destroy me. They freed me. I think about that sometimes. About how the worst thing that ever happened to me was also the best thing. About how losing everything I thought I needed taught me that I needed nothing but myself. I don't wish betrayal on anyone. I don't recommend it as a path to self-discovery. But I also know that some of us have to be broken before we can be rebuilt. Some of us have to lose everything before we can find what matter. I found my art. I found my voice. I found my strength. I found a life that is mine, completely and beautifully mine. And I found gratitude. For them, for the betrayal, for the pain, for all of it. Not because it was good, but because I survived it. Because I'm here, on the other side, stronger than I ever would have been without it. So here I am, 50 years old, alone but not lonely, single but not incomplete. My work hangs in galleries. My book has helped people I'll never meet. My students tell me I've changed their lives. My friends, real friends, the ones who showed up when I had nothing to offer, are the family I chose. I painted a new piece last week. A woman standing on a cliff facing the sea. The sky is clear. The sun is bright. Her arms are open, wide open, like she's embracing the whole world. It's me. That's who I am now, the woman with her arms open. I heard through a mutual friend that Mark and Lauren divorced, 2 years after the wedding. Apparently, the thing they built on betrayal couldn't withstand the weight of reality. Shocking, right? I felt nothing when I heard. Not satisfaction, not pity, just a quiet acknowledgement that some stories end the way they're supposed to. I hope they're okay. I hope they found whatever they were looking for. I hope they learned what I learned, that you can't build happiness on someone else's paint. But that's their journey, not mine. My best friend married my ex. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it forced me to become someone I never would have become otherwise. It forced me to stop looking outside myself for validation, for identity, for love. It forced me to find all of those things within. They thought they were destroying me. They thought they were winning. They had no idea they were giving me the greatest gift of my life. The gift of myself. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more story like this, please like the video and subscribe the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notified.